Hi everyone, I'm Don from Langara Makerspace. Today we're going to have a look at Adobe Photoshop. So first off, we're going to open up Photoshop. Now, just a side note, I'm using Photoshop CC version 2019. You may be using an older or newer version, so there may be a few differences. So you might have to do a little searching to follow along in some areas. So first off, we're going to open it up and create a new file right here. So click on that, create new. Up pops this grid and interface here. You may not have recent or saved, so we can go over to Photo, Print, Art, Illustration, Web, Mobile, Film, or Video. Now, I'm just going to click on Print. These are basically just initial setup files. There may be a certain size, there may be a certain resolution, there may be a certain color mode. But let's just start with legal. If you go to the right side here, you can see it's 8.5 inches by 14, and the resolution is 300, the color is RGB, and the background's white. Okay. First of all, if you're not comfortable with inches, you just click here and you can change the actual units. It doesn't change the file size, it just changes how you're seeing your units. You can also change the orientation from portrait to landscape. Now, the resolution is very important. We're going to do a file that I'm going to be able to print, so I'm going to keep this at 300. 300 pixels an inch is a great resolution for printing. You can change this later after you've started the file, but I wouldn't advise it. If you're using a lower resolution and then you decide to bump it up, a lot of your objects could get pixelated and have jagged edges in that. My recommendation is 300 for print. If you're doing digital websites, I recommend 96 pixels per inch. I know people do use 72, but I recommend 96. Now we just go to the color mode here. If we click on this, you can see there's a bunch of colors or choices here. Let's talk about CMYK first. CMYK refers to the real world, the 2D print world. So if you're printing on your color printer or you're going to go to a printout shop, you want it in CMYK. CMYK refers to the inks used on 2D printing, and that is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Okay? RGB references the digital world, and it represents red, green, and blue. Now, what this represents is the actual pixels. Every pixel is made up of three little LEDs, a red, a green, and a blue, and it represents on or off, or the amount each is on or off, and that defines the color you see on your monitor. Grayscale, it's just basically black and white with grays. Bitmap is a very small in file size, and you would use that if you're doing a small GIF or icons or something like that, and you can actually define the amount of colors in it, so it can be a very tiny file. But we're going to do a print file today, so let's select CMYK. The backgrounds here, you can choose a solid white, and this is just what you see behind and your object. Black, and you can also do transparent and a few other things. Let's just do a white, let's do a transparent background. And I'm just going to go now create. So this is basically our artboard here. I'm just going to move this over a bit. Now I can see it. So let's just look around at this interface. This is our floating main toolbar. You're going to be using a lot of things on here. This is the artboard we just defined. And if you look up here, this is our ruler. So it says 14 inches by 8.5. If I come up to here and I right click, I'm going to be offered different units here. So if I'm not comfortable with inches, I can change this to centimeters, pixels, whatever. If I was doing a website, I would use pixels. Okay. So on the right side here, we've got a number of tabs. And we're going to talk about this in a bit. But up here, top left, is your main menu. And if we click on Window, you're going to see a whole bunch of stuff. Now these are all the tabs that will appear over here. I'm going to talk about those in a bit. And this area here is in relation to an object and tools you're working on. And you're going to be able to have a lot of different settings that you can change and define up here as we are working on object. So the first thing I want to do though is go up to the top menu, click on File, and go Save As. It's always good to save your file right away. So we'll go Save As. You have an option of saving it to the cloud if you have access, or to save it on your computer here. So up pops this. Now I always like to define a folder for any project I'm working on, a specific folder. I'm going to call this the PS Demo. And I also like to define my file, name it something specific, and give it a version. Now, if I was working on this file for a few days, I always like to save it as version 1. The next day I come back to it, I want to save it as version 2. The reason I do that is sometimes files get corrupt, and you would have something to go back to then. Also, maybe there's something you did in a newer or an older version and you deleted it in the newer version. You can go back and look for it. So I always like to do that, and just go Save. Maximum compatibility makes it maximum on older programs and that, so always do that and say yes or OK. Okay. So we've got the floating toolbar here, and we've got our layers. So if you look down here, by the way, just in case you forgot, we go to Window, make sure Layers is on, or you can hit on the keyboard F7. And I guess I'll just show you something quick here. If you want to add more to the tabbed area, you can add, just click on one of these. There's our color. It may come out here, to be honest. Depends how your Photoshop is initially configured. If it just pop up here, you can just click on right on this tab area, drag it over, and you see a little blue box around everything. Just let it go, and it becomes one of your tabs. Okay. And if you want to get rid of something, you just drag it off and click that little X in the top right corner of it. Okay. So any of these, of course, I can drag over here if I want, and drag it back. So let's talk about layers. Very important. First of all, if you look down here at the very bottom, you're going to see a bit of a plus and a box. Let's create a new layer. I'm just going to click on that. Now I got a second layer. Then there's a file folder next to it. I'm just going to click on that, and that's a group. Now when I'm doing multiple objects in that on here, I want a bunch of layers. You can move these layers around. You can move the groups around. You can put layers into the groups. And it's just really good to keep everything well defined and organized. And defined would mean I would like to change this to whatever you're referencing. So in this case, I'm going to do a background, and I think I'll make another. You can do as many as you want. Now these have gone into that. So just drag them out. I'm going to do a text layer. You can do these afterwards, you can do it during, or you can do it before, like I'm doing it right now. I think I'm going to do a fish. Maybe I'll put logo. And again, I got to drag that out because I don't want it in there. So you can see all my layers now. Now you want to be highlighted when you start working on a layer. So let's begin with this toolbar over here. Some of the very basics. Let's just show you how to do. If you scroll, go down to here, you're going to see the line tool. But you see a lot of these tools have a little white arrow in the bottom corner. Just left click and hold down, and you'll see they have a bunch of other tools available. Okay, I'm just going to click on the rectangle tool. And if I go on to the surface here and just holding the left mouse button down, just drag it, and you see I've got a box here. Now you see it's black. If I want to change it at this point, you can see down here, these are actually my colors. I can just change that to the foreground being red, I can go to this little paint bucket here, go like that, go right over my object, and just click on it, and it's going to change to red. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you quickly why you want layers. I'm going to change this to an ellipse. I'm going to pull it. Now, if you want this to be a circle, you need to hold down Shift. If you want it to be ellipse, don't hold down Shift. And there's red. Now, if you look at this, I'm going to do the selection tool up here again. Move it around. It's basically one object. If you look at it here, it's one object. So it's not really what I wanted to do. So at any time you can Control Z or Control Z or Command Z on the Mac. So I'm going to undo that circle. Okay, so this time I'm going to select a separate layer. I'm going to go down here. Now, if you double left click on, this is the foreground and then that's the background color. If I double click on that, left double click, this color picker is going to pop up. So you can either just pick in here, you can click an area, this is what the color is going to be. You can click over here. So this is a good way to get the initial color, and then you can tweak it over here. But you can also enter it in here. So this is your RGB. You can enter just numbers in here. You may be given a number, let's say for a logo or something. This down here is a website color. There is charts for this, so it can define certain numbers, and you can just plug those in and it'll pop up the number, or sorry, the color. And this is CMYK, so you could get specific percentages for a specific color in here, or you can just enter this in here. Okay, but right now I think we'll just choose green. With the picker, I'm going to say OK. So that's now our foreground color. I'm going to select the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold Shift now, so it becomes a circle, and there's our green circle. Okay, so you notice now in the layers, let's just name these. This is the circle, and this is the rectangle. Okay, so you notice the circle's above the rectangle. Now I can select this now, and if I go up to here and select Auto Select, then I can actually click on the rectangle, but I can also click on the circle. So whatever you click on, you can move around. Now keep this in mind, it can get a little tricky because you sometimes can't click on certain things because there's a bunch of layers around. You can turn this off. Just select the layer you want to move, and you move it and it won't select anything else. I use auto select a lot so I can quickly grab objects and move things around. So you see that the green circle's above the red square. All we have to do is drag this layer up above that, and now the rectangle's in front of it. Okay, that's why part of the reason layers are very handy. And I'm just going to delete this now. So I'm going to start by bringing in an image. Now there's a number of ways you can do that. You can actually open a file folder and just drag in an image. Or you can open it, you can open the file up here, just open file. And then you can select and copy it and paste it in here. Or you can just embed it. Now there's place linked and place embedded. The difference between these two is place embedded, it will become a part of your Photoshop file. And that file you can put it on USB and take it anywhere you want. If you place it linked, what that means is it's a proxy of the file, and it's referencing a file somewhere on your hard drive or in your cloud. The problem with that is if you decide to go somewhere and just put the file on a USB, take it somewhere else, open it up, and you forgot to bring the linked file, it's not going to find the file. So if you want to place it, place embed. Okay? I'm going to do it the way I like to do it, where I've got some files here. I'm just going to drag them into here. So I want a background. There's my background. Now you see it's got an X through it, and you can see these nodes all the way around it. That's allowing you to scale it up right now, okay? With Photoshop, it is the opposite of Adobe Illustrator, which I find strange. If you grab a corner and scale something, it keeps its proportions. If you press Shift and then scale it, it'll distort to different proportions. Adobe Illustrator is actually the opposite. So I'm going to place this up in the top corner. I'm going to hold Shift because I just want it to fill the whole surface. And a good trick is you can go let it snap because it automatically snaps to the edges. But a lot of times images there's a line or something weird on the very edges. So I like to, for backgrounds anyway, go you can see I'm just outside of the area there. When I'm happy with the image, I'm just going to hit Enter. And there it is. There's my image right there. Now I'm going to drag that into my background. Okay. And I'm going to go Save. And now don't go Save As, but go Save. It's just going to update your file. You want to do this fairly often while you're working, especially if you're doing complicated things. If you don't save it, something happens, or you do something wrong, you're going to lose that, lose those changes. So I'm going to bring in some more images, and I'm going to do the way I like, which is just grab a bunch of images and drag them in. So I'm going to select these, that one, and I'm just going to drag them. And again, you see the X pops up. I'm going to scale these down a little bit, but leave them fairly big. And the reason, I'm going to scale them down quite a bit eventually, but the reason why you want to leave them fairly big is when you're cutting out backgrounds and doing things like that, you want it as big as possible, because then when you size it down, it looks better. Okay? So remember, you got to hit Enter for each image. So there's another image. This is kind of cool because it's an image I got from a photo stock bank, and it's just got a white background, so it's going to be easy to get rid of that. I hit Enter. There's another image. I'm going to hit Enter. And we got one more water image. I'm not sure if I'm going to use this a lot. I'm going to use the magnifier glass to zoom out a bit. Let's just leave that there for now. Okay, so under backgrounds now, you can see all my images. I'm just going to maximize this on my desktop. Okay, so a whole bunch of images. So you just click on the eyeball and they're going to be hidden now. Okay, so there's our main image. So now I'm going to create a new layer first of all, and I'm going to just paste in a color, and this just helps you to see the artifacts and the edges and everything while you're trying to cut out a background. Just keep in mind, don't make it too bright of a color because you're going to be staring at it for a while. So I'm just going to choose a green, fill it in, and I'm just going to drag that down to the bottom. Okay. Now I'm going to bring up this fish image I have. Now, first thing, you see in the corner over here, there's this little icon. What that icon means is that image is not rasterized yet, meaning you can't edit it. You can change the size of it, but that's about it. It's best to size it, have it the largest size possible when you change this, because once you rasterize, it can get more jagged or bitmappy if you are going to scale it up. So I'm going to click actually all of these. I'm going to right click it. If you go down around the middle here, you can see rasterized layers. Just click on that. Now you see the icons are gone. Now I'm going to be able to edit this. So I just want this fish first of all. Okay, so we're going to use the magnifying glass here, and we're going to zoom in a bit. And the nice thing about the hand, the magnifying glass, if I hold the space key down, I can move around with the hand. Magnifying glass again, pull down to zoom in, pull up to zoom out, so it's pretty handy. Okay, with this, because the fins the gills and that are pretty, and the tail, pretty translucent. I'm just going to trace around this image to cut it out, because I want to cut the fish out of here. So there's a few tools I can use here for this. Lasso, which is just a loose freehand tool. The polygon is more straight lines. And the magnetic lasso tool, which clicks to a like kind of points. It's not bad in some cases, but because of the translucence of the fins in that, it's not going to work well here. I actually like the polygon a little better than the lasso. It does do straight lines, but I find if I zoom in tight, it works pretty good. Now, a good rule of thumb is actually to go around it pretty quick with this tool and just cut out some of the main background. Then you don't have to worry about or deal with that later. So we just go around the object quickly, just left clicking every time I want to make a new direction. Watching those fins. And there we go. So the fish is actually selected right now. Now there's a couple ways you can do it. I could copy this and paste it, or I could do, if we go up to the top menu and go select and then inverse. Now it's actually selecting everything except for the inside where the fish is. So I'm just going to go delete, and there's the my background, a lot of it gone. So now I'm just going to go Control D, Command D on the Mac to get rid of the selection. Now I'm going to take the magnifying glass, pull down to zoom in, pull up to zoom out. I'm going to pull in pretty tight. I'm going to hit the space bar so I can move around it a bit. So now I'm going to select the polygon lasso tool, and I'm just going to slowly start to go around my fins and that. I can't see this too good here, so I'm going to have to guess on some of this. You can do this as tight and accurately as you want. I mean, you literally just zoom in tighter if you want it just super accurate. I will suggest when you're doing what I'm doing right now is you do it in sections, because you're going to find that you could do the whole fish like this, but you could almost be at the end and you click wrong and you can't undo it, and you're going to lose all that time. So I like to do just in chunks. You can see I can get around it fairly fast. And now I'm going to go like this. I'm going to make sure I select all the background. Just click on there so it's closed, and I'm going to go delete. And then Control D or Command D on the apple, and it unselects it. So that's not too bad. You could also in the end cut these out separately, change the colors of them. It's a way to make them possibly look more realistic. But I'm going to continue doing this, and we'll be back in a minute to show you the results. Okay, so I've cut out everything, and I've done a few other things here. If we go up to the tab area here and click on this little arrow to expand it, you can see I have the triggerfish. I've named it. I've also got tail, top fin, and bottom fin. What I've done is I've cut the actual fin areas out. And you can hide them or unhide them. Now the reason I've done this is because I may want to play with the opacity on these. So you can click on the opacity on any layer, and let's see, you can see how that looks a little more realistic as I knock down the opacity. It'll change as when we add different backgrounds, but so I'm just gonna minimize that. I'm gonna hide that now because we're gonna work on some of these other images we brought in. So this is a cool couch with a kind of a white background. There's a lot of shading going on here, so we got to be careful of that. But this time, to select the background, we're going to use the magic wand. So just select it on magic wand. We're going to go up here. We're going to see it's on tolerance 40, anti-alias, and Condigulous. So we're just going to click on here and see what the results are. Actually, it's pretty good. It looks like we've got just about everything. There's some shadows in that here that are remaining, but that looks not bad. So I'm just going to go delete, and it's going to cut that out. I'm going to go Control D or Command D on the Mac, and it's going to cut that out. So now you can see why the green background is actually really valuable. If that was, well, let me shut it off. That was a white background. You may miss some stuff that's still around here. Okay? So now we can just sort of finesse this. You can see it's a little jagged in there. There's some stuff remaining, stuff from the shadows here. Let's click the magic wand again, click on there. Don't quite like that. I'm going to go to Control D to unselect. I'm going to just raise this tolerance up. Now, stuff you just play with, right? See what works best. That looks pretty clean now. I've jacked it up, the tolerance to 70. I'm going to go delete. I'm going to go Control D or Command D on the Mac. Pretty happy with that. So I'm going to try the same settings now on these other areas. That looks pretty good. I'm going to go delete. Control D to unselect. Delete. Control D. Now there's a little bit of debris down here. There's a number of ways we can clean this up. You could individually select it, but there's also this eraser tool here. Just click on that. You see the circle here? Not too bad, but if you want to change that, like any tools you're working on, you're going to have variables up here you can adjust. So I'm just going to knock that down a little bit in size. That looks about good. So I'm just going to click in here. You just kind of wipe it back and forth until the object's all gone, or you can just double click it. So that worked pretty good. Now I'm just going to get that one piece here, and I'm going to use the magic wand again. Delete, Control D to unselect, and I'm going to keep zoomed in. Oops, got the magic wand instead of the hand. Let's click on the hand. I'm going to keep zoomed in so I can just go around this and see what we got here. Okay, looks pretty good except the bottom in this area, so use the magic wand again, delete, Control D, unselect. Now let's go deal with the bottom. I'm going to just zoom out now, so I'm going to pull up, space to move it. Again, you're not moving the object, you're just moving your view of the object. So now, if I use the selection tool, click on that, what's happening is the white's so close to those legs, it likes those legs, so I'm not too happy with that. Let's go Control D to unselect. Let's just select that shaded area. And it's going into the white again. Control Z. Let's just cut out that shaded area. Control D, unselect. Let's lower this tolerance down now. Let's lower it to, let's try 20. Okay, so I've got one area, and then I've got the Shift key held down so I can keep selecting areas. Now it's gone up there again. Don't like that. These are going to be troublesome because they're so close. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to cut these out of here. So again, using the selection tool, just going to go down carefully. Again, the more time you spend on this, the better. The more zoomed in you are, the better. I'm trying to do it fast for the demo's sake, but you can take as much time as you want here. Okay, so I'm going to go Control X. I'm going to cut that foot out. I'm going to Control V to paste that foot back in. I'm going to use the selection tool, go back, put it right where it belongs. Okay. And I'm going to write left foot. Okay. Now let's go to the other side. Now remember, you got to go back to the couch. I'm going to put orange sofa so I know what that is. And again, I'm going to cut this out. So use the selection tool here. Just try to quickly cut this out. Again, a little bit crude because I'm trying to go fast here, but you get the idea. Control or Command X, Control V or Command V, we paste it back in, and we just drag it to the area because you've got your guide there. And I'm going to go right foot for the layer. And while I'm at it, I'm going to drag these up to, okay, we got logo. I'm going to make a new folder and call this the sofa. So I've got everything in there now. Okay. Turn the other layers off. So those feet are there. I'm going to click back on the orange sofa. I'm going to zoom out. And I'm going to use the magic wand, sorry, again. I'm going to select this. Not too good. I'm going to go Control D. We go up to tolerance. Let's go back to 80. Click on that. It's looking good. I'm going to hold the Shift key. Click the darker areas now. And that looks pretty good. It's not selecting the feet, of course. I can turn those feet off so you know it's not. It is selecting everything. And we'll go delete and Control or Command D to stop it. Now I'm going to set the feet back on, and there's my sofa. Now, there is a little bit of a trick here. Well, actually, let's take this. These are different kind of selection tools. They're called Marquee Tools. You can just select whichever one is best for you. I'm going to just select the rectangle, left click, drag it around your object, okay? And I'm going to go Control X, and it's cut. I'm going to go to Control V, and it's pasted. So it was about here. I don't know if I want to use the clock. That's why I cut it out. I'm going to name this clock. And what I was going to say before is I definitely want those feet on there. So I'm going to take the sofa, all those three layers. I'm going to hold the Shift key, left click, and select all those. I'm going to go down to the bottom here of this tabs and click that linked layers thing. Now those are all linked, okay? So now, if I grab this and drag it, everything's linked together. So it's not one object, but they're linked objects. I'm just going to go Control Z to get back where we were. Okay. And I'll put that back on. We're going to play with some shadows and shading in a bit to show you what we're doing here. Now, what else do we have here? We've got our main background, and we got this guy. Now this guy is on a pure white background, so this should be pretty easy. Let's try it at 80. Goes into him too much. That's not good. Because it's pure white, we might be able to get away with like 5 or 10. Still coming in his glove a bit. We can even try 1. That looks pretty good. Because this should be one color, that should work good. So I'm just going to go delete and Control or Command D. That looks pretty good. There's a little odds and ends there. You can deal with that. Now, if it was going on a whitish background, something, you wouldn't worry about that. But let's just zoom in here with the magnifying glass. You can see there is a bit of debris on him. There's a number of ways we can do. We can use this the lasso or polygon tool to try to go around that. I use this quite a bit. This is a smudge and a blur tool. Let's try the smudge. Again, any tool you're using, there's going to be things to change up here. So if you look at this, you can change the size on that. And it's pretty big right now. I can tell by it instantly modifying everything. So let's go down to about 20. and you're basically dragging whatever around it sort of together. So doing this, I'm pretty zoomed in right now. This is probably going to help this a lot. Or you can try the blur tool. Which again, you can change the size and the hardness. The harder is, the more crispy edge it's going to have. So this is the blur tool. That seems to work a little better. Again, Photoshop, when you're just learning it, just try stuff, just play around with things. So that looks pretty good, actually. Go in there and blur all those. And if this guy was going to be large on this printout, I might, do a lot better job of this. I might actually cut it out of that, but I'm probably going to put them in pretty small. So when we zoom out to almost actual size, you can barely see that now. Okay, so that's another way to select things. Okay, so let's make one more folder for this guy. Let's just say soccer, drag it up here, put him into there, and we'll hide him for now. Now, one more thing I want to bring in is a logo. Now, logos, if you can get the original source, are usually going to be an EPS file, an Adobe Illustrator, a CorelDRAW file. What that means is it's an actual drawing file. It won't have a background attached to it. Other ways to get them are a PNG drawing file. A PNG file, you can have an invisible background. So these are very important ways to bring it in. I'll show you the differences between the two. I'm just going to go place embedded, and here I have a PNG file. I'm going to place that in. So you see it came in without any white background. We can scale it up now, or just press enter to lock it in there. And we can also just embed, place embed. This is an original AI file, Adobe Illustrator. And there it is. It's asking me, do I want an image, 3D, or page? I'm just going to say crop to bounding box, okay. And that's a big logo. Now this was a square logo, so it doesn't really matter anyway. It doesn't have any areas that would be invisible anyway. We'll just click on that. So these are some logos I brought in. And we've got a text layer. So let's just look at text now. This is the T right here. That's your text. You can just click on Artboard anywhere you want. And I'm just going to start typing. And it looks like, if you go up here, that my text is green. So it's selected the foreground color as opposed to the background color. No problem. I've still got the text highlighted. I'm going to go up here and change it to white. And there we can see the rock star. Now, you see there's no controls up here all of a sudden. I'm actually on the object, but there's no controls. With the text, you have to click the text and highlight it to actually change things. So now you can see everything up here. So there's my color. I'm going to change this again to, I think, a bright yellow. Go OK. Now I want to make this bigger. So up here you can see it says 30 points. Let's put it at 72 points. Not really happy with that font. So you can click on the fonts and change this at any time. Now you can see on this side here, as I'm rolling over these fonts, that they're actually changing. Now, looks like I did opposite caps here, so I'm just going to make these caps. Now I'm going to highlight that again. So we'll just go over these areas here. So this is how you change the actual look of the font. And this is going to be changes to the font. So you can have regular, you can have bold, italic, that kind of thing. You don't get that with all your fonts. Arial is the most common. You're definitely going to get bold, bold italic. Okay, so you can change it there. Now, a note on fonts. So if you wanted to, you could just select part of this area. You can change the color there. So maybe I'll go to orange. Okay. And you could change the actual font that's there, different than the one up there. Okay, so a note about fonts. You have to be very careful with fonts. If you're working on your own computer, you're going to print out here, your own computer, great. If you're working on a computer, let's say at Langara lab, most of the computers in that lab are going to have the same fonts. But if you go from a PC to an Apple, they're going to have different fonts. If you go to a different computer lab, they again may have different fonts. The problem with that is, if I save this file, put it on a USB stick, go to Langara, open it up, it's probably not going to have the fonts I've been using. And what's going to happen is a warning message, as soon as you open it, it's going to pop up saying, do you want to substitute this font? It's going to try to find a font that thinks it's close and drop it in. The problem with that is the font will change. It will look different. It could be a totally different size. So if you plan on eventually going back to the original computer and finishing it there, say no. Now, if you are at a different location and it wants a substitute font and you do plan on outputting it there, you are going to have to choose a different font and make it work. So there is one trick though. If you are finished your file or actually finished the text area, you can go over here to the tabs area. You can right click on that and click rasterize type. So just like we rasterized an image before, that's going to lock that into an image. It's no longer going to be a font, it's going to be an image. You can't edit it as far as the actual letters and that go. So if you want to do that, you can rasterize it, and then when you go to another computer, it's not going to be looking for that font. I hope that's clear. Okay, so that's under our text. Let's get this background opened up. That's kind of cool. Let's see if I can stretch this. I'm going to go Control T or Command T on the Mac. And again, I'm going to hold Shift to distort it. I think that looks pretty cool. Okay, that's my background. Now, something, I don't want to move this background. You can see actually there's a green line at the bottom that's showing the background. The green, I'm going to hide that, but I'm going to change that. I'm going to go Control T again, hold Shift so I can distort it and drag it down. Now we're completely covered everywhere. Okay. Okay. So I don't want this to move at all now. So something you can do down here, something you can do right here is go to lock. That now has locked that background in place. I'm not going to have selected or do anything to it, which is great. That's what I want. So let's just start playing with these layers now. Here's a logo. Don't really like that one. Let's try this one. Put that there. Here's a soccer guy. He's pretty cool. I'm going to scale him down now, so Control T. And by the way, if you drag or just rotate your cursor just past the corner, you can actually rotate these now too. Let's do that. Where's that sofa? I'm going to get rid of the clock, and I'm just going to drag this sofa down. Now, you see the sofa's in front of the guy. So I'm just going to drag the layer up above, and now he's in front. Don't really like the size of the sofa, so I'm going to minimize that a bit. Oh, by the way, there is, so we are on the Move tool for the selecting. There's also this command up here called Auto Select, and you can auto click on things. Okay, so I can click on him, click on there. I use that a lot on auto. So I want to scale this down, Control or Command T. And I'd feel better if I had some shadows here. So let's see if we can get some shadows going. And you know what? For shadows, I want them on those two. There's a couple ways to do shadows. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select all these and go merge layers. And I'm going to change that to sofa. So I've merged those. Now it's just one object. So if I hide it or unhide it, okay. So I can try double clicking on this. Layer style comes up, and you can play with this later. It's got all these cool effects in here. I'm going to go down to the bottom where drop shadows. I'm just going to see how accurate I can get a drop shadow. So we're getting some pretty weird shadows in here. This is the opacity of it. This are the actual distances. This is the angle, so the direction the shadow is going to come out. Not liking those shadows. We'll show you that again on some text up here. Another trick you can do is if you right click on that, go duplicate layer and sofa. Now, little thing up here, very handy. If you click on that, it won't be able to paste anything outside of that. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to click black, drag to black. I'm going to go to my fill tool. Oops. I'm going to undo that. I don't want to do that actually. I'm going to go to File, Edit and Fill. Okay? So it's foreground color. That's that one. Opacities. There we go. Now we've got a black couch. So I'm going to unlock that now. I'm going to drag, put the visibility on that one, drag it up above. I'm going to make sure this auto select is off because I want to be on the shadow layer, and I'm going to just change that to shadow. And I'm going to drag that down now. Okay. So we can do that. We could also try to lay this down. You can distort it and do all kinds of things with it. But if we just do that, and now I'm going to knock down the opacity. And now that I've undone the lock, the transparent pixel area, I'm going to take one more effect here. Now there's tons of filters up here. Again, you just want to play and explore them. I'm going to go to blur, and one of my favorites is Gaussian blur. And you can see, sometimes you can move around and see this here. Here we go. So that kind of shows you the edge, what's going on with it. It's a lot more blurred. I'm going to boost the opacity now. This is just the kind of thing you want to play with, right? So not quite what I want yet because I kind of want to ground this. Again, you just got to play with things. So what I've done is I'm just scaling it down from the top. So it looks more like it's coming from underneath there, and I can just move that up a touch. And now if I just drop the opacity quite a bit, that's pretty good. Doesn't really look like it's underwater right now, so I might want to play with the opacity here. There, we've got it underwater. Same with the soccer guy. I'm thinking I'm going to use this lasso here. I'm going to cut him. I'm going to paste him back. Okay. I'm just going to say the bottom and the top of the soccer boy. But now on the bottom, I'm going to change the opacity. And you can see the couch a little bit through him, so not the best. Maybe knock that couch opacity down a little bit. Lower. Okay. So let's get our text out here. Now the text, I'm going to put some effects on that. Rockstar. I'm going to double click. Many things you can do here. You can bevel it. We can put drop shadows on it. So you control the size. Just play with this stuff. It's really fun. The distance is actually, you know, as you're playing with this, you see how everything kind of works. That's the distance. And we can go in here, color overlay. I'm not really happy with those colors, so maybe a lime green. And we can also, if we wanted to, do a gradient overlay, which is fun. You can also do an outer glow. There's many fun things you can play with here. And let's just move that around now. So I've gone Control T or Command T. And the last thing is our fish. So I think what we're going to do, so I want to scale this together. So I'm going to initially link these 4 pieces together. I'm going to scale it down. Front of the couch. Want them kind of in the forefront. Give a little depth. Now I'm going to unselect or unlink those. I'm going to take these 3 and I'm just going to change the opacity. So anytime you want to change the opacity, you can select more than one object at a time and it'll do all the layers together. So you can see that looks a little more realistic over the Rockstar. Fins in that look a little better. Might knock him down a little bit just so he looks a little bluer. Okay, maybe one last thing. Let's go back to the sofa and the clock. I like the clock to be sort of floating above everything. Let's size it down a little bit. And let's just go to this Marquee tool here. We'll go to elliptical marquee. Now I'm going to have to make a new layer here. So go down here, put a layer in. I'm going to put it under the clock. I'm on that layer. I'm just going to draw a little ellipse underneath. I'm going to use this for fill. So I'm going to go to the fill bucket and just go over that. And there we go. I'm going to go Control or Command D to unselect that. Kind of on the surface. So I'll just put shadow for that layer. I'm going to go up to opacity now. And drop the opacity down. Looks a little big. I'm going to boost the opacity up a bit. And just size that a little bit. That's looking better. Now just knock down the opacity. And that looks pretty good. I think I'll just do a little bit of an emboss around the edge of the actual clock. This looks a little more solid that way. So we just put a little bit of a bevel on the clock there. And there we go. So please just play with this program, experiment with it. It's a huge program. You can do some amazing things with it. There's tons of more tools on it. It's got a good help menu up at the top here. Just go through all the filters and all the different things you can do here and have fun. There's lots of different videos on YouTube too if you want to explore this further. So thanks very much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.